So, like I was telling you in the text, I was working on the scales, which are okay. I mean, obviously, I need to polish them off. And the triads, I haven't had a chance to try to sit there and memorize them. I mean, obviously, knowing the scales, I can actually find the triad, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's as far as I got with that.
Okay.
Let me just start with the scales so you can take a look. And I'm going to put you lower. I don't
Okay.
want to be rude and not show you my face, but so you can see my hands, make sure my technique is okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yes,
Cool.
just start with a C scale.
You can see my hands good?
Yep.
Okay. Can you hear?
Yep. Yep, I can hear great. Beautiful. Now do a G scale. Nice. Nice, man. Let me just see something. Okay, so that sounds it sounds and looks great. I just want to look at the C scale real quick and point out something that you will improve over time.
Okay.
When you cross your thumb under, you want to make your hand move as little as possible. So right now it's normal to like want to move your elbow, but you never want to do that. Yeah, if you and there's an exercise that I can show you to help with that. But it's you want to when you cross under, you want to cross your thumb but not move your wrist. So it's all in the thumb, and then I'm crossing my left. I'm the fourth finger I'm crossing over, and my hand is moving smoothly still. Or sorry, the third finger was what I was crossing over. But my hand, you notice how my hand like doesn't. So that'll make it so that you can do it faster. Because if you do it with moving your hand and you try to go faster, you'll get stuck there. Because you have to Yeah, that's even better. Yeah, just thinking about it, it's better. I'm gonna just write this down.
How'd you notice the wrist? I've been so conscious about not trying to pop it up like before.
Yeah.
Popping it up.
And it looks great. The positioning of the wrist is fantastic right now.
Yeah, I do listen every once in a while, right?
You and me both.
Yeah.
Alright, so I'm just writing this down. Don't move.
You know, I gotta tell you, I haven't had a chance to learn the Phrygian.
Okay.
I've been focused on it. Like every time I sit down, it's something like all skills.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's what I did when I got to college.
And the next day, it's kind of like, what the hell? I forgot everything.
No, man, just do it. It's muscle. You're building. You're creating neural pathways that take a long time to build, and they break down a little bit every night. So every day when you go back, if you don't have it, just build it again. You know. When I went to college, I couldn't do my scales. Like I never practiced or really learned my scales when I first got to college when I was 18. I was just doing other stuff before that, and so I would spend at least 2 hours every day doing 40 beats per minute, just like super slow. You know? There was actually, okay, I'll tell you a really funny story, but very briefly because I know we're in a lesson. There was one time, I mean, sometimes I would go for like 8 hours. So one night
just doing that?
I would get into some other stuff, like I would get into some Hanon eventually, but those scales could last for 4 hours. And one time it was late at night, and I would often do my practice sessions like really late, from like 10 p.m. to like 4 or 5 a.m. So I got to the practice studio, but it was actually a room. It was like a little performance venue room with seats and everything, and there was a little handicap elevator for like to go up to the seats. So I go into the room and I sit down, like start doing my scales really, really slowly, like, you know, as slow as it goes. Actually, it was probably even slower because this was like near the very beginning. And I do that for like probably 45 minutes, and then I hear like a movement from the handicap elevator, and I'm like, what the? And then the door opens, and a guy and a girl walk out of the handicap elevator, and apparently they were like fucking in the handicap elevator before I got there.
With your music.
And well, no, before I entered, they were like, "Oh, we found this room, nobody's there." And then they were in there when I walked in, and they were like, "Oh shit, what do we do? We'll just wait till he leaves." And I sit down and I start doing these scales. Like, I can't even imagine what they were thinking. Like, what in the world is going on?
That he's never gonna get done at that speed.
Yeah. And so then eventually they walked out. They walked out of it, and they were like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, we were having sex," and they just like left.
Well, that's funny. They couldn't wait you out at 40 beats per minute.
Exactly.
That's funny. That's good stuff.
Anyway, I digress.
I tried the 40 beats per minute, and I have like the little metronome that's built in here.
Mm-hmm.
Convenient. It's hard to just stick to it. Just
Yeah. But it's also so good for your mind. It's a meditation. Like, because you don't, when you're doing it, make sure you're not thinking of other things also. Make sure you're paying attention to the notes, you're paying attention to the technique every single time that you press the key. And when you get an acoustic piano, you can even go a layer deeper, because on an acoustic piano, you can hear all of the subtleties of every note, like, depending on how hard you press it, and the feel of it, like, you get this other layer of unexpected details that you then have to pay attention to, and you get better by recognizing those details as you're going. But make sure you're focusing the whole time, and it's an incredible mental exercise.
Yeah, I started doing that first. I was doing it. I tried to just pull out the notes as I did, because I'm still trying to familiarize myself with the notes and the placement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially when you start getting into the flats and
Yeah, sometimes when I lose concentration, sometimes I'll actually stop and meditate without the piano for like 10 minutes. If I can't take it, I'll just like stop, go, so I do a chanting meditation, and then I'll stop and then just go somewhere else, do the 10 minutes of chanting meditation, and then come back to the piano if I feel like I can't take it. But it's such good exercise.
Yeah, I get that. Huh? Yeah, yesterday I came to practice, and I was pissed off at something. I can't remember what it was. Dude, and I was screwing everything up. Like, stuff that I thought I had down, I was like, you know what? I'm shutting it off one leave. Because I couldn't, you know?
Yeah, I know.
I couldn't sit there, because I was just going to get more frustrated because I couldn't do a C scale. Which I over and over, you know what I mean?
Well, and that's the thing, is that's the challenge, is to understand that it does take a long time, and just be okay with it, and be at peace with it, and not try to do more than you can do, but gradually build up these layers of skill, which is what we're doing right now. So so do an A flat scale. I need to see your hands also.
Oh, you can hear it?
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, can you turn the keyboard up at all? Yeah.
Better?
That's great. That's great. Yeah. Same thing with the tucking with your wrist and the thumb.
The crossover? The cross?
Well, yeah. When you cross over, try to keep it. Smooth, so it's just you're floating along the keyboard. But go on. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No. I mean, that's what I want you to do. That. If I keep doing it the wrong way, I'll hold it.
Yeah, nice. Beautiful.
I noticed I do this a lot.
Yeah, that's the thing you want to avoid. Yeah, you don't, because it just you're you want to you know what, let me put my phone on airplane mode. I'm getting, well, it doesn't even matter, whatever, it's still recording.
It doesn't show.
It's
for what it's worth, it shows, so.
Huh?
Whatever you're getting on your phone doesn't show.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Great, great. Do a C sharp. C sharp major scale.
Oh, which one? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
C sharp major scale. Awesome. Okay, now do a B major. Is your hand feeling tense?
It's not as much as it used to.
Okay.
I remember you're telling me it's helped a lot because before I'd play for 20 minutes and my shoulder hurt, my elbow, I was all tight. But applying what you told me last lesson, it's helped tremendously.
Yeah, awesome. What was the point that was helping? Because there are other points too. I'm pretty sure that I can help with.
Keeping the hand, not cocking the wrist, relaxing. Like you were telling me, just up your hand, don't stiffen up.
Yeah.
It should be effortless,
Here's some more. Now, you're focusing on your hand, which is great. But now that you have your hand pretty relaxed, I want you to focus on your entire body when you're sitting. So make sure your feet are squarely on the floor.
Right.
Your legs shouldn't be like, they don't need to be all the way together. They can be in a nice relaxed position, like a little bit apart, just wherever's comfortable.
Right.
And then there's a balance. So the way that you sit with the way your hips are, your back should be like relatively straight, but not with your chest out. Your shoulders should actually be draped a little bit forward in a relaxed position so that your shoulders are directly over your hip bones. And that way, if your back is straight and your head is up, like not back, but like just the crown of your head is straight up towards so your spine is as straight as possible, then all the weight of your spine is resting directly on your hip bones on your tailbone, and then that creates it creates the ability to just rest into it rather than holding it there with muscles.
Yeah.
So if you do
less tired, I'm assuming.
Exactly. So then and then you want your shoulders are like just a little bit forward in a relaxed way, and then your hands relaxed on the piano. Everything should be as relaxed as possible. Yeah, that looks great. The way you're sitting there. That looks really good.
I mean, with the tips you told me before, I couldn't play with half an hour without getting home. Now I could tip like an hour. I could tip more and not even get all tired. My wrist hurts.
Yeah. Beautiful.
All right, cool. Good.
All right, so do an A major scale. Almost. You take it slow. Yeah, just watch where you're crossing over in the left hand when you're going up, and make sure it's when you start out, it's for the left hand. Your pinky rests on A. Every time when you cross over, the goal is to, if you're crossing up, your thumb hits before that. So it's like pinky, 4, 5. I'm sorry, pinky 4, 3, 2, 1, and then fourth finger crosses over there.
Right.
Yeah. And then thumb. And then cross over again with the third finger. Do you see how that makes sense?
Yeah.
Do it very slowly going up. Yeah, stop. Do you see where your thumb just landed?
Yeah.
Go back a step where your thumb was on your left hand. You don't want your thumb to be there. The goal is to have your thumb be at the next step because you're moving to a black note upwards after that. So to do that, you have to use your fourth finger crossing over after the E. So start with your just left hand. Yeah. Yeah, now cross over with your fourth finger. Yeah, and now thumb. Now third finger. Now fourth finger. Yeah. It'll allow you to go faster in the end. Does that make sense? Yeah. Well, you don't have to go that fast. Slowly. Whoop. Slowly, slowly. Yeah, there you go.
And then it's the third. So
Yeah.
it's fourth and the third.
Yeah, and the theme to remember is... Yup, exactly. Nope. There you go. Whoop. Yeah, well, even when you go up to the top, make sure it's your pointer finger that's landing on the A. Because you want to be crossing with your fourth finger for consistency's sake. The goal here is just purely reasoned in physical logic. Anytime that you want to go upwards to a black note from a white note, it makes sense to cross over. So there are some different theories. So it's possible that a different that you read a different technique, but this is the one that makes the most sense.
I gotcha. Yeah, because I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, did I do it wrong in the beginning? And it's okay. So the fingering, the way I saw it from this sheet is correct, but you're giving me a more efficient way of doing it.
Yeah, I guess that's probably the case.
right. So it's kind of...
There you go, yeah. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, great. I don't think I need to see the rest of your scales. I feel like you got them.
You know what I'm gonna do? I'm assuming that the last video that you did with us, where you ran through all the scales. I gotta be honest with you. I didn't look at the video where you ran through all the scales. I was just using the sheet from online.
Cool.
If I go back and check that video out, it has what you just told me, obviously, right?
Yeah, okay. It's got all that.
Yeah, because I do a lot of the fourth crossing, and I noticed a lot of the fourth crossing, but with all the black note keys. I've noticed that when you do all the black notes, D flat, A flat, E flat, B flat, and when you start off, your initial crossover is always a 4.
Yeah, that's generally the case because you have the 3 at the beginning, and then there's 4 notes in the scale next before the next repetition.
You could apply that to this one also. And the other. Okay, cool.
All right. So now triads. Play me a D major triad.
B or a D?
D, as in dog. Okay. Play me an F major triad. Great. Okay. Play me a B major triad.
No. Is that right?
Play it up. Play it up a little, up an octave, so I can see.
Is that it?
That's it. Sorry, it might have been the speaker, but yeah, that's correct. Whatever you're playing right now.
Let me...
Yeah, I can hear that much better when you play it up there.
I'll raise it up a little. Let me, is there a specific fingering to use on triads, or is it what's
it's always 1 3 5.
Oh, 1 3 5.
So. It's all just 1 3 5.
Always 1 3 5 fingerings, right? Regardless of the triad.
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Cool. All right, so now.
I mean, that makes sense considering the notes are always at 1 through 5.
Yeah. Exactly.
Rocket science over here.
Cool. So now we're going to expand upon both of those things for the next lesson, okay?
Okay.
We are going to do all of the modes. There are seven modes. Okay?
Shit, dude. Right. Okay.
And this will help you with your major scales also. There were about like 5 years of practice where I was doing all of the modes every day. I don't do them anymore because I know them well enough.
Uh-huh.
But I spent a good 5 years doing it every day.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Question. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, please.
I'm assuming that should I do it this way without focusing on learning the intervals first, or should I go on to understanding what the intervals? Because I don't know. I hear people say, the first, and to get to, the fifth or the sixth or the seventh, or you know what I mean?
Well, the intervals is what is the thing we're tackling with triads, because you have 2/3. 2/3 make up a triad. One, that's the first third, which is a major third. Excuse me. And then the second third, which is a minor third, stacked on top of each other makes a major triad. And it's 1, 3, and 5.
Right.
So when you're in C, you can play a triad. Now that we're learning the modes, you'll be able to play a triad over any note in the C scale, and then that will be the inner. You'll know the interval, like the chord interval in relation to the 1. Let me explain that a little bit. You have your 1, which is your C, right? What happens if I make the triad on a 2, but still in the C scale? What does that turn into? Can you tell me?
There's a name for it, I'm assuming? I don't know.
It's a minor triad.
Oh, okay. Is that the case for all? When you hit the second of that particular scale, is always a minor triad?
Exactly. That is always the case. So if I'm in F sharp, and I base the triad on the 2, it becomes a G sharp minor triad. If I'm in B, and I play the 2, it becomes a C sharp minor triad. That's because the second scale degree is what is called the Dorian mode. That's the first of the modes, well, the second of the modes. The first one is major, which is called aolean, I believe, if you want to have the technical term. And the second is Dorian. So the Dorian scale, and tell me if this gets to be too much. The Dorian scale is...
Too much. No, I'm kidding.
The Dorian scale has a minor triad, and you'll a lot of these pieces you're going to learn separately, and then they sort of layer on top of each other and fuse together in different ways. But if you play a C scale starting on D, that's a certain sound. It's a certain recognizable sound. It's that Dorian sound because it's a minor scale with a major 6. If you look at it...
Let me back it up a second. Let me back it up just one bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so I practice all my scales. I'm assuming that by knowing all the scales in a circle of fifths, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I got to bring it down to like a more remedial level.
Do it.
I'm assuming that by knowing all the notes in the circle of fifths, that what is meant by a relative minor is that I, by default, know all the minor scales also. Mm-hmm. Is that a true statement?
By default, by knowing the major scales, by default, you know every other scale that exists in the Western, in Western music. You know the minor scale, you know the Dorian scale, you know the Lydian scale, you know the Phrygian scale, because when you play, this is C, right? Now if I start on A but I play a C scale, that's the relative minor, correct?
What do you mean when you say when you play on a C scale? What do you mean by that?
So a C scale, for simplicity purposes, C scale uses all the white notes, right?
Right.
So any point that we start, we're going to still use all the white notes. That's the C scale. The C scale happens to use every white note on the keyboard and no black notes. It's a very racist scale. Just kidding.
Right.
If you start on an A,
What you're saying, I got it. It just clicked to me. Okay, so you're just starting on a different note. You're not changing your fingerings or anything. You just do the same.
No, exactly. So it's actually, and when I played it just now, I actually played it wrong. You want to start, at least for learning now, you want to start with your middle finger on A, because that's where you would if you were doing a C scale. Both middle fingers would be on A. So when you play,
That's how you start that?
Yeah, just start it with your middle finger on A. Not by, that's just discovering where the fingering is by playing the actual C scale, but once you should remember, this is one of the things to sort of memorize. If you're playing an A scale, an A minor scale, because it's the relative minor of C major, you're using the same fingering as a C major scale. So this fingering, these fingerings that you're learning for the major scales, you use that for every single other scale. The only difference is what note you're starting on.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Starting to make sense to me. So it's not. So there's no. So knowing all the major scales, I already have at my disposal all the different modes of any scale.
Exactly. So when you play,
I know every single possible combination of keys that I'll be playing at any given time.
Yeah.
That's tough, man.
Yeah, in diatonic, like right. Well, but you know every possible combination of diatonic keys.
Well, that was my question. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was going to be my next question. So diatonic means just a straight,
No, chromatic is every key.
Diatonic is all the white.
Diatonic means a scale.
I
Diatonic is a scale in a mode.
Right. All no sharps or flats, all white keys.
Well, not necessarily all white keys, but just all of the keys of a major scale somewhere on the keyboard. If it's diatonic, it will align with a major scale somewhere on the keyboard. So this is diatonic. It just means it's a scale like that. If you do chromatic, it's this. That's chromatic. There's no major scale or minor or Dorian or anything.
Right. Switching, you're talking to me and I put your face on a big screen and I switch when you do the piano, so that's why you see me reaching over.
Cool, all good.
Okay.
But by knowing the major scales, you know all diatonic combinations. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it actually does.
So I'm going to explain that step by step now. By just using C as an example. Okay, so I'm playing a C major scale. Pretty easy, right? Now I'm going to play a D Dorian scale. Do you notice what happened?
Started on D.
I just started on D. I use the same fingering.
Right, the same fingering as if you were doing a C.
Same notes, same fingering as if I was doing a C, but I just started on D. My root is now D, and it changes the sound completely.
But you're still in the key of C.
I'm still I don't have to be in the key of C, but C is the relative major of the key that I'm playing in. So C is the relative major of A minor, so I could play an A minor scale and it'll be the same as C. C is the relative major of F Lydian, so I could play which is not an F major scale because there is a B natural in that scale.
Right.
And it's a certain sound. Yet you recognize that sound from other stuff as well. All of these are used in different pieces of music because they all give feelings. The Lydian gives a bright feeling. It's like in Lord of the Rings when they reach it and go into the heaven area and it's all like la la, you know, that's like a Lydian sound. There's Mixolydian if you start on G. Which is a little bit of a darker, more menacing sound because you have it's not a G major scale, you have a flat relative to the G major scale, if that makes sense, because it would normally be F sharp if it were a G major, but it's an F natural, so you're in the relative, the C is the relative major of this scale that we're basing on G. You know? So you can
It actually makes sense, yeah.
So now I'm going to name for you every scale based on C and where it begins. And I want you to learn these.
So now these are just like regular scales where it just so happens that the white keys in the C scale, you can just start on different notes, but there's rules as to, like the other video you posted saying that, one of the notes is flat, and then for the next mode, that one's flat plus another one, et cetera, et cetera. There's rules, obviously, right?
Yeah, exactly. And there are two directions to learn the modes. There are two places you can come from. One, which we're doing right now, is coming from this side, which is looking at the major scale, and then where you start to base it on its relative major in order to get that sound. The other side, which gets to the same result, is by looking at what notes are flatted or sharped in that scale based on the same root. So let me explain that a little bit further. From this side of it, from the right side, if I wanted to make, this is my C major scale, right? If I want to do a C Lydian scale, not go to the relative Lydian scale of C, but actually make a C Lydian scale, I would look at C and I would say, the Lydian scale has a sharp 4. So this 4 I'm going to make sharp. And now I'm going to play that scale. Okay?
Those rules for each mode, does that change the fingering? Does the fingering
It does change the fingering, but this is where the other side is helpful. Because when you want to discover the fingering for that scale, you have to look at what your major scale is relative to that key. So now that my 4 is sharped, I have to look at that and say, to get the fingering, I look at what is the major scale that has that note sharped. And if you have all of these in your memory banks, you'll know that the G major scale has an F sharp in it.
Dude, I'm surprised I knew that.
There you go.
Very cool. Very cool.
So now you use the fingering of a G major scale, but you're not starting on G, you're starting on C. And that's how you can discover your fingering for that C Lydian scale. So that's, do you understand where these come from two different angles, but they reach the same conclusion?
I'm just getting ahead of myself and saying it's going to be a pain in the ass.
No, it's great. It's great, man. Because this is what I want you to learn for next time. I want you to be able to do all of the modes of all of the keys. I know it's a big thing to bite off.
and triads too.
And triads, but
No,
it's.
I'll do it.
So check it out. I'm gonna now play for you, and explain every mode of the C major key, of the C major scale.
All right, cool.
Obviously, we have Ionian, which is major. Okay? And then we have, based on the next diatonic note up, based on the 2, you have your Dorian scale. Which, if you look at it isolated, based on a D, it's a flat 3 and a flat 7 relative to D major. Does that make sense when I say that?
Yeah.
So, but it's the same as the C major scale. That's D Dorian. Okay? Now E, you go to the 3rd of that diatonic major C scale. You base your scale off the 3rd, and now you're in E, but it's E Phrygian, because you have relative to E. Well, I'm not going to go through all the relatives. I'm just going to say it's Phrygian and play this because I don't want you to get too overwhelmed. E Phrygian. So that's... I'm not actually doing the fingerings right. I should be. But it's something I'm bad at. I need to pay more attention to the fingerings when I'm doing these other modes. I don't often do Phrygian with correct fingering, but I'm showing you the correct fingering because it'll be good for you to start from that baseline. You know, you'll probably forget it at some point. But so now F, Lydian. So same, all white keys, all the keys of the C major scale. But now it's F, okay? G, this is G Mixolydian. A, Ionian, which is minor. B, based on the 7 of the scale, this is Locrian. Those are the 7 modes. So Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Ionian, and Locrian. Surprised I remember that from music theory class.
So let me ask you a question. You want me to do all the modes for every relative major scale?
Yes. 1 octave. It doesn't matter how fast. Just do it smoothly. 1 octave up and down. Just do it every day. It's not actually going to take you as long as you think. Whatever, 7 times 12.
Scale.
What's that?
You have no idea. That's what I thought. We're just learning the regular scale.
But once you have these in your head, you have access to every color available in the diatonic key spectrum.
So is this specific? But is it mainly used in
It's used in everything. It's used in classical, post-romantic music. A ton of the late Beethoven music uses all of these different scales. And then even playing in a major key, even in pop music, if you are playing like a 1-4-5 pattern, you're going through 3 different modes. Because anything you do, you have 1, and anything you do on the 4 is going to be Lydian. Because you're not going to make a B flat when you go to the 4. You're going to have a B natural. So if I'm playing like... If I stop there, take a slice of that, that's an F Lydian scale that I'm using. Because if you look at F in isolation, it would be... Right? But it's not. It's like with... I want to do the correct fingering because this is being recorded. But does that make sense? It's F with a sharp 4 if you look at it F in isolation. If you go to G, you're not going to play an F sharp, you're going to play an F natural. So now you have your Mixolydian scale. And that's all in C major, and it all makes sense because it's using the C major scale. So then you know what colors you're using and why. Now minor to Mixolydian, back to major, to Lydian, to minor, to Mixolydian. This is the knowledge base to do every type of color. Like so then once you know these, if you play this and you make a song that only does that the whole song and it never hits C, and then you end on the G, and then you go back, you'll know that it's actually in C major, even though you never hit a C, because you're using A minor, which is the aolean, is that it? I think it's aolean scale to G. If you use an F, it'll be F natural. So G with over the Mixolydian scale to F over the Lydian scale. And you know that when you have that combination of notes, you're actually in C. So if you wanted to create a resolution, you would go to C. And you know that that's a resolution, even if nobody else knows that that's actually where it can go. But that's where the ear is pulling you. I deal with this in pop music all the time because people don't know these things. The things that I'm teaching you are things that a ton of pop musicians just have no clue about because they never went to school for it, they never studied it, they just play what they hear. Many of them. Some of them know a lot of theory, but many of them don't. So I've explained this to people who are writing these chords and they don't understand how they can resolve it or why something works and why something doesn't work. And it's very powerful to know the math of it and know what everything is relative to. So that's why I want you to know it to begin with, because then you can write stuff too.
It shouldn't be as overwhelming as I think, because technically speaking, I've already done the fingering for all of those. I just got to know which is which.
Yep, exactly.
I know your scales.
Exactly. So now, just to make sure that it's clear how we use this in all of the keys, I'm going to show you the same thing in C sharp. Okay?
Okay.
So, C sharp, the major scale obviously is this. Okay, now what, well, I'm not going to ask you to, you don't remember if I ask you what the two, what scale is based on the two, could you tell me the name of it? Probably not, right?
Oh, no.
Okay, you'll get it by going back through the video. So this is the Dorian scale based on the 2. I'm going to elaborate a little bit. Now, if you're just playing in Dorian, that's Dorian. It's all based on the C major scale, but with the 2 of the C major scale as the root. Same fingering as, I mean C sharp, I said C.
Oh, I was going to say,
you know what I mean. You know what I mean. It's all based on the C sharp major scale. Sorry, it's been a long day.
Gotcha.
With the 2 as the root. Okay?
Okay.
F. F Phrygian. Now I want to go one step further here, and I'm gonna do 2 layers of complication. See if you can if you can absorb this.
All right.
I'm in C sharp major scale. Now, I go to the E flat scale based on C sharp major, and it's the Dorian, right? If I were to play an E flat major scale, it would be this. Right? So I just went to the other side. This is just an E flat major. To get back to the center, now I'm going to flat the 3. So instead of a G major, I'm doing a G flat. Instead of a D major, I'm doing a D flat. Now I'm back to the center where I have my Dorian scale by flatting the 3 and flatting the 7. That's how you get a Dorian scale from any given root. You flat the 3 and you flat the 7. Okay? Remember that. That'll be powerful when you're bringing these two together, because a lot of music brings these together. It's how you can switch from one key to another by knowing these relative situations. So F. Okay, F. This is F Phrygian. If I were to play F major, it would be this. But to get to the Phrygian, I'm flatting 4 notes. I'm flatting the 2. Does that make sense? Tell me if it doesn't make sense, because I can always stop and slow it down.
I'll stop you the second it doesn't.
Okay. The 3, I'm flatting the 3. The 4 is regular, the 5 is regular, I'm flatting the 6, and I'm flatting the 7. So, now, you have your Phrygian scale, which is the same as its relative major of C sharp major, F Phrygian. So those are the 2 directions to come at F Phrygian, the 2 ways to create it, which are both very important. F sharp, which is the 4th of the C sharp scale, the C sharp major scale. So this scale, Lydian, sharp, and that's the Lydian scale is the sharp 4. It has a sharp 4 to it. If I were to play an F sharp major scale, the way I get to the Lydian is by taking the 4 and making it sharp. So coming from this side, you have F sharp major. You sharp the 4 and it becomes F sharp Lydian. Sorry. Coming from this side, you have C sharp major. And if you use the 4 of C sharp major with the same C sharp major scale, you have F sharp Lydian. Okay? This is information that is just as important to just review mentally as it is to play. So
I was saying the same thing. That's why I was saying before the comment of, technically speaking, from a finger standpoint, I really should have these under my fingers by knowing the scale. Mm-hmm. It's more mental exercise, a mental mapping.
Exactly. Exactly. You're mentally mapping the entire spectrum of Western music right now as we're doing this. Everything that was written since Gregorian chant to when it became atonal, all tonal Western music, I should say, is based on what we're learning right now. And I say Western because in Eastern cultures they have quarter tones and different scales and weird shit. But, that's for another conversation. So, I want to keep going because I think this is important to have on video and important for you to be able to review. The 5. Here's the correct fingering. Okay? If that's an A flat scale, if it were an A flat major scale, you would get to it by flatting the 7, and it becomes a Mixolydian scale because the Mixolydian has a flat 7. you get the gist. Every single one of these scales is the fingerings of C sharp major. The next note up, the 6. This is aolean, which is minor, the natural minor scale. This is the relative minor to C sharp. And remember, relative minor is only one of 7 relative options. This is the relative Dorian to C sharp. This is the relative Phrygian to C sharp. This is the relative Lydian to C sharp. This is the relative Mixolydian to C sharp. This is the relative minor or aolean to C sharp. And this is the relative Locrian to C sharp. There are 7 relative scales. Minor is only one of them, and it's the most common alternate to major in Western music, so which is why it's on the circle of fifths that you printed out probably. But to get...
Or does that, you do it on the 135, you do something?
Say that again?
Always open the chords.
Oh yeah, I was just playing 1, 3, and 5 because that also outlines the scale in a simple way. Really, you have to have all the notes of the scale to hear the entirety of the scale, but you could play a 1, 3, and 5 of any of these, and it will be correct in that C scale. All of those are within the C major scale, but based on their relative root, if that makes sense.
Stupid question alert. Is there a particular, you got the circle of fifths and the, I guess the circle of fourths on the left side when you start going counterclockwise?
Yeah.
So, is there a specific way you can say either C sharp or D flat? Is there a rhyme or a reason to it, or is it whatever you feel like saying on a given day?
Why you would sharp something? Why this note would be D sharp versus E flat?
No, why you would call it C sharp and I'd call it D flat scale? Maybe.
Oh yeah, it's just the same thing. It doesn't matter. Usually it's based on there are historical arguments about people saying that D flat sounds different than C sharp, which is actually true if you are playing with an orchestra where there are no frets and it's all completely there's no restriction to the notes. But that gets into a different conversation of Western music. The chromatic scale that we have here to be able to play in all keys is imperfect. A fifth is not a perfect fifth. Mathematically, it's impossible to have a keyboard like this be completely perfect, because a fifth plus a fifth does not actually equal a ninth. It has to be stretched a little bit to be able to equal a ninth, so that you can do a fifth in this key, and do a fifth in this key, and do a fifth in this key, and this key. But if you have an orchestra playing, if they play a C and a G, and it's in C major, it will actually have a different sound slightly from what you hear on a piano. It gets kind of complicated. I could go way deep down that rabbit hole.
It doesn't matter if you say B flat or D sharp.
It doesn't matter for our purposes if you say it. On piano, ever since Bach created the well-tempered clavier, it doesn't actually matter unless you're playing in an orchestral setting. Alright, so I'm going to go back to what I was showing you before. So this is your 6. Actually, I'm going to ask you, just to make sure that this is being absorbed to some extent. I already said what that is. What if, relative to the C sharp scale, what is this? Yeah, exactly. And what you'll learn as you review this video is that on the 4 of any scale, it's the Lydian mode. You create the Lydian mode out of starting on the 4th. So that's what I'm going to ask you next time. I'm going to say, what is this relative to C sharp? You're going to say the 4th, and I'm going to say, play me that scale and tell me what it is. based on its relative major of C sharp. And you're going to say it's a Lydian scale, and this is how you play it. Okay? So this is what? Say that again? You got really soft. I can't hear you now.
Is that the 6 of
Yeah.
C sharp?
Exactly. It's the 6. And what I want you to know for next time is that the 6 is the aolean scale, which is also known as minor. With the right fingering, that would be where you place the 1. To get there from the other side, if you play a B flat major scale, it's this. To get to the minor scale, you are flatting the 3rd, you're flatting the 6th, and you're flatting the 7. So then it becomes 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, 1. And back down. Okay, the next one up is what? Huh?
What's that?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's the 7th, obviously.
Yep.
I mean, I shouldn't even have to count that out.
There you go. 7. Okay. Is that WhatsApp message not going to go away? I feel like...
Happy people. Don't worry about it. I can still see your hand. You're still...
All right. That's the scale based on C sharp, which is the Locrian scale. To get a Locrian scale, it's a C major scale. And I'm flatting every note that there is to flat, which is the 2 and the 3. Huh?
The Locrian of a C sharp is a C major.
No.
No?
Locrian over... The relative Locrian of C sharp is C Locrian. If you take...
C major fingering because you flat it off the chart.
It's not... Well, no. I was just showing you a C major scale. This is just C major. But when you play C Locrian, you're going to use the fingering of C sharp. It's the fingering of C sharp major. So your thumb is on the C. But then your first finger in the right hand is on the C sharp, and your middle finger of the left hand is on the C sharp. Because to get to the Locrian scale from the major, if you're doing it in the same key, you flat the 2, the 3, the 5, the 6, and the 7. So 1, flat 2, flat 3, 4 is natural. 4 is always natural. You can't flat the 4 because the flat 4 is actually the major 3. So you have 1, flat 2, flat 3, 4, flat 6, flat 5, flat 6, flat 7, back to 1. And that's a really, that's the darkest sound you can get. You know, it's a really beautiful sound if you use it right. And then that's it. Then you're back up to C sharp. C sharp major. That's all of the scales. That's all of the modes in a relative scale. Now you're going to have to transpose that, obviously, to do D. Being able to do the Dorian. The Phrygian. Lydian. I'm showing you these things, but it's been a while since I've process them in this way, So do that in D, D sharp. Do it in every single key, and then
that'll help jar the memory.
What's that?
I said I'm gonna transcribe them like you said, and that'll help with the memorization, obviously too, and just writing it.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be good. If you do transcribe it, send it to me. Like, take a picture and send it to me, and I'll put it up on the lesson that I put up, so that anybody else who's watching it can get that too. It'll be helpful to them, probably.
All right. Cool. Yeah, definitely.
So, but there's one other thing. I know we're over time, but it's okay. I just want to give you another thing to do besides that, which this one will be easy, because once you have that, this one will be a no-brainer. And I'm gonna move that WhatsApp thing out of the way just so it gets. I hate how it doesn't go away. This will be a no-brainer. I just want you.
Huh? We're not doing songs yet.
Huh? Oh yeah, no songs. No songs yet. Sorry, but I think this stuff is really, really important. What?
Yeah, I hear you. I'm just giving you a hard time.
So I want you to just be able to play. We're gonna expand the major chord that you did. We're gonna expand that major triad in 2 directions, okay? And I'm gonna write this down so I remember. Actually, first let me write down what we just did. So all modes based on a relative major, correct fingerings, and understanding of flats and sharps from the other direction. And when I say the other direction, that just means from not the relative major, but the major scale of whatever key that is that you're in. So if it's like E flat Dorian, meaning understand that when you have an E flat major, to get to the Dorian of E flat, you flat the 3 and you flat the 7. And that makes it the same as C sharp, which is the relative major, which is how you get the fingering. Okay, all the concepts we just did over the past hour, I just condensed into one sentence, so it's okay if that's confusing. But what I want you to do now is be able to firstly do a 7th. Okay, so if I say play C major 7, I want you to do this. But there are 2 variations of that. If I say C minor 7, I want you to do this. Do you know why that's a C minor 7? Okay, because to make a major, well, all right, let's take a step back. This is C major scale, right? Or C major triad. To get a C minor triad, you take the 3 and you make it flat, just 1 note down. 1 half step down. Huh?
That holds true for any of the major scales.
Exactly. Any major triad, A major triad is this. A minor triad is this. All I did was take the 3 and flatted it. F sharp major, F sharp minor. E major, E minor. A major, A minor. It's all just take the 3 and move it down a half step. Okay? Now, check this out. The same happens with the 7. If you have a major 7 chord, which is the 1, the 3, the 5, and the 7, that makes sense, right? Does that make sense why that's a major 7 chord?
Yeah.
Okay. So 1, 3, 5, 7. To make it a minor 7, you flat the 3 and you flat the 7.
The 3 is just a regular minor. A minor 7 is flatting the 3 and the 7.
Exactly.
For all major scales.
Yep. Every single one. I'm really excited that you're going to get this stuff, because these are the building blocks of like a huge spectrum of understanding.
Getting all nervous and shit. I got a job, man. I got stuff I got.
It's all right. I mean, if you can put in the hour to an hour and a half a day that you've been putting in, you'll get this stuff within like 2 weeks. And I'm leaving on Sunday. I won't be able to do another lesson for a couple weeks anyway.
Don't hold me to it, but I'm gonna.
But what?
We did 2 to 2.5.
Say it again. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Means 2 to 2.5 a day. If I could do 15 hours a week, I'd be a happy camper.
That'd be amazing. Yeah, man.
Family and work and traveling, we'll see.
No, I believe it. I believe it's got to be challenging. All right, so.
All right. You said major triads. You add the seventh, then you had the minor, which is flatting the third, and then you have the minor 7, which is flatting the third and the 7th.
Yep.
Okay.
So get the minor triads. If I say F sharp minor, I want you to just be able to play that. Get the 7 chords, which means major 7 and minor 7. And then the reason that will be easy for you is because do the first thing first. The first part of this lesson that we spent on modes, tackle that first. You could spend a week on that and not get into the 7 chords. Because when you know the modes, it'll be much easier to do the 7s, because you'll know that if you're in an E flat minor mode, you have the flat 3 and the flat 7 already. So if this is E flat minor, you know that that's an E flat minor 7 chord. Or that's an E flat minor chord. If it's an E flat major, you know that that's the major 7. So get the modes first, and the 7s will, and the minor and major 7s will come much more easily.
I think I got to nail that also. I got to nail down this triads. I want to be able to do it without having to dig through them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that's how you're going to do it.
You don't think I should split up my practice time between several of these? You think I should just hit, let's say, triads, and then the rest of the whole, hours or whatever time I have doing the modes? And then once I'm done with modes that I feel I'm comfortable, then I can start doing the 7th and minor 7th, minor 3rd, and minor 7th.
I feel like that is. It depends on how. It depends on your ability to focus. Sometimes it helps to switch things up a little bit. Like if you do 45 minutes of modes and you're like, I can't take this anymore, let me do major and minor triads. Go to major and minor triads. It's fine.
Yeah.
But if
I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of tough sitting there, especially with the scales and hit no.
Believe me, I know. But the key is like the reason that it's hard is because the mind wanders, and it plays tricks on us. It makes us feel like we need to do something else when we actually don't. So the key to that is trying to become at peace and have just like calm focus, which is why I meditate. It makes it so much easier.
I understand, and I'm noticing now, like I told you before, I'm lasting longer, but getting more stamina without any issues and pain. And number 2, actually, I'm flying. I mean, before I know it, now I'm still struggling to get something right.
Yeah. No, I know. Time will fly, man. I was at a point one time where I could do 10 hours, and I wouldn't even notice.
Yeah.
It's all, and that's all mental.
Good stuff.
But that goes for anything in life, right? Huh?
Yeah, that's true. I know you're going to be traveling and stuff. I'm going to ask you if you have a moment.
Mm-hmm.
This would be so awesome for me to read it.
Oh, I'm definitely going to upload this. No, for sure. This will be uploaded. In fact, I'll upload this today because I haven't uploaded anything today for anybody. So I'll put it up.
Then I'll transpose all the modes for all the relative major keys, and I'll share the mode keys, and then you can add it to that.
Beautiful. I appreciate it.
No problem. It'll help me out in the long run. It'll benefit me.
Awesome. Are there any other questions or things that you had about all of this stuff, or are you severely overloaded now?
I'm severely overloaded, but I'll be good.
Cool.
I'll sit down and I'll kind of map it out in my head how it's going to go, and it'll be fine.
Great.
Are we going to be doing any sight reading or anything like that? Or
We will.
is that not yet?
Yeah, for sure we will be doing sight reading. But believe me, when you get this stuff down, you'll sight read with a completely different perspective.
Really? Cool.
Yeah, because when you do, like, we're the first thing we'll do when we do sight reading is the first prelude of the Well-Tempered Clavier by Bach.
Right.
And that will take what we're learning now about all of the modes and just lay it out in the most effective, most beautiful way, and you'll recognize every bit of it because you will know what all of it means.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool, man. So there are songs down the line to learn about future.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I'm going to write that down as a thing. Objectives, sight reading, Well-Tempered Clavier. And I need to learn that book as well. That's one of my goals, is to learn that whole book. So maybe we'll do that together, because it does take a lot of work to get it. I haven't had time myself.
Good stuff, man. All right, man. I'm going to let you go. I know you're tired.
Cool. All right, man. Well, thank you for working with me on timing. And this is very cool. I'm going to upload this so everybody else can see too. And I'll send you a link as soon as it's uploaded.
All right, cool. And I'll send you the thing like in 10 minutes.
Beautiful.
Have a good night, man.
Right. You too, man. Talk to you later. Bye.
Yeah.